Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It has gone 6 o'clock, so we will start the business of Cabinet tonight. So I welcome you all to the meeting. Agenda item number 1 is the evacuation procedure. All those present are aware of the evacuation procedure, so I intend to leave it as printed and not bother reciting it unless anyone in particular needs me to. Agenda item number 2 is apologies. All of Cabinet are present. Any declarations of interest not already printed on the agenda? No. So that leads me to agenda item number 4, which is the minutes. Is everyone happy that I sign them off as a true and accurate record? Okay. Thank you very much. Leads me on to agenda item number 5, which is public consultation. We have Mrs. Condacor on agenda items 6, 8, 9 and 10, and Peter Smith on agenda item number 7. But I intend to take them all in the order as printed. So that leads me on to agenda item number 6, which is the adoption of Warwickshire County Council Child Friendly Warwickshire, and that's Councillor Markham.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides Cabinet with information and details in relation to the Child Friendly Warwickshire programme and the benefits of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council joining. Child Friendly Warwickshire seeks to link up and promote the already solid work happening to promote safety and create learning and employment opportunities for children and young people, and to do even more so the county is the best place it can be for them to grow up. The programme is supported by the Department of Education and inspired by the principles and values embodied by UNICEF Child Friendly City Initiative. Warwickshire joins just a handful of other areas in the country to develop this further. Through the campaign, Warwickshire County Council want to ensure children and young people have impact and influence in shaping the county and are committed to listening to their views and considering their needs. In order to be successful, the programme requires the support of local authorities, partners and organisations so that every child and young person, whatever their background, has the chance to flourish in all aspects of their lives. This will be key to the success of the Child Friendly Warwickshire, ensuring it can create opportunities with lasting and positive change for young people. The strategy is clearly outlined on the attached report. So, as at paragraph 2.1 of the report, I ask that the signing up of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council to the programme be approved.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Markham. Does that receive a seconder? Yes. Councillor Gutteridge, thank you. We have one public speaker on this item, which is Mrs. Condacor.
Thank you. Yeah, obviously it's a good initiative. All the objectives and things are very worthy. It just needs to be more than just words, and if it's not followed by money, I do worry that all the things won't actually happen, and that sort of is reflected in the outturn report. There was an underspend on the play and teenage provision, and if we'd want to really promote children and their well-being, we need to make sure that the money is spent in the years that it's intended to, and that there aren't underspends on this really important thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Condacor. I'll bring you in afterwards, Councillor Gutteridge, if you want. Any non-cabinet member? Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. A lot of it is very good stuff, but there's also a lot of mentions in here of stuff that we should be doing or were doing, particularly amongst it said about children involvement in important decisions. And I know in the past there's been quite an active youth parliament in Warwickshire, and we're doing so much. I think we're spending £100 million in the Nuneaton Town Centre, probably, all your projects. So I do think we need to try and get young people, particularly young adults, involved in some of those stakeholder briefings, or if we ever have any, and get them involved in shaping the town, because the town is going to last as we create it now for the next couple of decades. So it's important to get young people involved. I do hope when we go out to consultation on some of the town centre stuff, we might actually write to the sixth form colleges and maybe the secondary schools and ask maybe for them, some of the children to have an input. Because I do think we need to generate a town that's suitable for everyone. And the children's priorities will be different to older people, or sometimes the same. They'll be quite keen on cycling because they obviously are too young to drive. They'll be very dependent on bus services. And also we've got some very good provision coming in. I keep saying how good the mountain bike track is in Bedworth. But obviously people can't always get to Bedworth if they're a young person. So I think we do need to try and get young people involved in asking for some facilities in the other parts of the borough, particularly in the west. Camp Hill to Bedworth would be a dreadful journey to do it with bicycle. So I do think we need to get young people involved more. I really remember with the youth parliament work, particularly at the county council, and maybe we should get them involved as well. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Condacore. Any cabinet member? Councillor Guttridge.
Thank you, Leader. Well, as a father, a grandfather, and we're expecting another grandchild in next year, I fully support this, and I would like to just sum it up basically, because the young people are our future. The objectives of this child-friendly in Warwickshire is the children and young people be heard, be safe, be healthy, be skilled and be happy. And I have great pleasure in supporting this. They are our future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Guttridge. I think that we are actually making great strides towards a child-friendly and adolescent-friendly, actually, Nuneaton and Bedworth. If you think about some of the things that we have been doing and are planning to do, we have, of course, a flagship project in Bedworth, which is the physical activity hub, which will be enjoyed, hopefully, by thousands upon thousands of young children, not only from Bedworth but across the borough, which is something which would not be happening if with this new administration did not put forward the Levelling Up Fund bid last year, ably guided through by Councillor Evans at the time and Kevin Hollis as the director. We also have the fact that we, in our last budget, put forward £50,000 extra for the playgrounds, which I know, having had many conversations with Councillor Guttridge, he is working hard on making sure that every last penny of that is spent, as well as other Section 106 monies that we have. We have done consultations with local residents and children about some of the redevelopments of some play areas, particularly Buttermere Park, which is overdue and has a number of funding streams from the housing estates which have been built around there over the years, and also the fact that we have supported our local further education colleges by bringing them into the town centre and making them more a part of the life of Nuneaton town centre itself, and bringing that zest for life into the town centre that we so desperately need. And actually the kids are invested in the future of Nuneaton as part of transforming Nuneaton. A few months ago I went and did a presentation for children who had done art and poetry promoting transforming Nuneaton. It's up on the hoardings now around the old co-op site, and indeed we took one of the winners up to see some of the work which had been done, which they were greatly interested in, and to see what the overall scheme that we have to help regenerate Nuneaton is doing. So I think we do have a track record to be proud of. Of course there's always more to be done, but I believe this administration is up to the challenge of doing that. So I'm happy to move to the vote unless there's any other cabinet member who wishes to speak. No? In which case we shall move to the vote. All those in favour please show. Okay, that is carried. So that moves us on to agenda item number 7, which is the Housing Ombudsman Complaints Handling Code Self-Assessment. Councillor Golby.
Thank you. This is a pretty straightforward agenda item. We've refreshed the complaints procedure and we're making it more accessible to people to put in complaints or views, because they don't necessarily have to be complaints. We are looking for feedback in order to improve our services, and it's in here for everybody to see. So everything's open and transparent, and I will present as is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Golby. Does that receive a seconder? Councillor Smith, thank you. We do have, or did have, one member of the public to speak, which was Mr. Peter Smith, but he is not in the gallery, and we're not aware of anyone waiting outside, are we? No. Okay, in which case he's had his opportunity. Any non-cabinet member? Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much, Chair. It all sounds quite wonderful. It's obviously in the detail and how well things work. A couple questions or themes where the leaseholders fit, because quite often our council, as a landlord, is still a landlord in some ways to the leaseholders, like at Cleaver Gardens, and also how we're doing with some of the social housing providers, how they wrapped in, because they're part of our allocation, so there may be, through our allocation system, they might be offered somewhere on a Midland Heart or Orbit thing. Do we keep a track on those? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Any cabinet member wish to come back or speak? No other cabinet member. Councillor Golby, you wish to wrap up?
As far as I can see, this is specifically for housing ombudsman complaints as per the landlord, and we are not the landlord to other housing providers, so they will have to have their own system of complaints.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Golby. In which case, we shall move to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendations, please show. Okay, that is carried. Thank you very much. That moves us on to agenda item number 8, which is the quarterly review of strategic performance report for the first quarter 22-23. Councillor Croft.
Thank you very much, Leader. I shall try and be brief as always on this report. There are a couple of things I want to highlight. We are slowly getting there on the HR metrics in terms of working days lost and development reviews, so that's good news. There are two things I do particularly want to highlight. The first is the area to improve on benefit claimants. That is due, we've lost a day effectively in speed. That is due to a computer systems upgrade within the council. We're migrating to the Azure system, and we are watching that very closely because obviously revs and bends and benefit payments is one of the crucial functions that the council performs. We're working very closely with the service provider, and we are almost there in getting that resolved. The other point I wanted to raise, because there's been some interest from our friends in the press, is the point about agency spend on page 74. Now, we know, and this is not a new problem, that we've got a real issue in this council with recruitment and retention, which is not unique to us. It's across the public sector because we've got a very, very tight labour market at the moment. And we are, at the moment, we know we need to be much more competitive in terms of pay and the offer that we've got. And we're taking proposals through the Employment Committee, which I don't quite think we're ready to share yet. And we've got ongoing internal analysis to make sure that we can make the right structural reforms to the council to make us competitive. But the point I would like to highlight is that while we are going out to agency staff and temporary labour to make sure that we can continue to provide services to the public in our key posts, particularly in the professional grades, the amount we are spending on agency staff is considerably below the amount of salary savings we are making, so there is no extra cost to the taxpayer. So I shall move the report, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Croft, and I will second that from the Chair. We have Mrs. Condacor as a public speaker.
Thank you. I mean, the main thing that I really want to point out is on the finance thing on your page 72, it's got 3 and they're all marked as green. Now, the finance department is grossly understaffed currently, and tomorrow there's the Finance and Public Service OSP, and that has no financial data in their report. And further into the report here, it says that for finance data is not included because it wasn't available. All those things put together say to me that the finance thing should be read, because it's not obviously in a good position, and the fact that you can't actually be giving figures and know where everything is alarming. I know it's not entirely, in your control in terms of getting people to do the jobs, but it really, as far as I can tell, should not be green for finance in the performance report. It is, certainly red for danger. Councillor Crofts obviously just touched on the thing about agency staff, and I know I've mentioned it before. It'd be great to, know what you are doing in terms of, are you able to increase salaries to try and get people to come? I don't know how it all works in the public sector, whether you are restricted, with what grades can pay what things. And the other thing, which obviously I know wouldn't be in the public domain, but I wonder in terms of like long-term sickness, whether it's looked at by the council, sort of what people are off with, because some things are avoidable and some things are less avoidable. So if someone's off with because they're having cancer treatment and things, obviously there's nothing you can do about that. But if they're off because of mental health issues which have been, aggravated by stress and things, obviously that is, more avoidable and things. So obviously that would identify people, so I don't expect it to be in a public report. But is it something that is looked at by the council to sort of try and separate the two and see how that ties into, the sickness rates? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Condacore. Did you want to come in as an officer to comment on any of that, Vicky?
Yeah, thank you. I can comment that we are in the process of putting together the 21-22 accounts, and we've now got some interim support in, so that we are definitely moving forwards. We are keeping an eye on the day-to-day, making sure there's cash in the bank, and that so the normal day-to-day things are being performed. It's just a lot of technical adjustments that aren't yet in the account, so it wouldn't be right to give information that wouldn't be fully accurate, because I think we could make decisions on information that isn't necessarily the correct information at that time. Ultimately, though, we are expecting to have the outturn position in the October cabinet meeting, and we are expecting to get the accounts ready by the end of September. So we are definitely moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. Brent wishes to come in on the HR issue.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to confirm that we do indeed assess the reasons for people's long-term absence, both on an individual and a council level, by categorising them into various types of absence, and then looking how best we can deal with that. In terms of stress, which is a particular issue Mrs. Condacore has flagged up there, then we have recently revised and improved and reinvigorated our approach to that, where we are now looking at, we are in the process of creating individual welfare plans and an assessment of how well our employees are coping with the various stresses of life in the 21st century, whilst recognising that because they are human beings that have interactions outside of their work life, that an awful lot of that stress can be caused by issues in their private life. Now that is to say that we also allow them to access our employee assistance programme, which offers a discreet and confidential counselling to assist them in that particular aspect of ill health. But it is just to reassure members that we take a particular interest in what those trends in long-term absences are, and take appropriate action to try and mitigate them. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Brent. So that moves us on to any non-cabinet member. Councillor Condacore.
Thank you very much, Chair. Turning to Appendix A, positive aspects, it's highlighted that 36% recycling and composting is positive. Well, that's a self-set target we're beating, and in reality, 64% of the waste not being composted or recycled is dreadful. We really need to be improving as a council, and I'm always disappointed that we don't strive to get half or 60% of our waste recycled. So we've set the target really low on that. In terms of affordable housing, there's just been about 59 affordable houses built on the A5. Can't be occupied because of planning issues, and I hope Councillor Smith will be helping the developer with that to try and unjam some of the Highways England issues, which is why we've got loads of affordable housing sitting there just basically rotting at the moment, which is a massive waste of probably a £10 million investment. And then going into the performance tables, particularly on page 80, it talks about establishing a long-term plan for the Civic Hall. And the action section there is totally blank. With the vaccination now going into GP practices, we really need to be progressing a long-term plan for the Civic Hall. So just have a blank section in this report is not really very acceptable. We should be actually pointing where we're going to and how we're going to progress with whatever we're going to do about that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Condacourt. Does any Cabinet member wish to come in on that? Councillor Golby.
We've touched on staffing issues. I just wondered if the behaviour of some councillors, for example, calling in every planning application, has a bearing on the fact that we are struggling to employ, although sometimes it's not exactly the best way to treat officers. And when we talk about pay, we are somewhat restricted because of public sector pay and unions. So there's a lot of factors in this that don't actually come into play if you are in the private sector. You could actually change the pay scales ad hoc. We can't do that. So it's just something to bear in mind when we're discussing these sorts of things in a very one-dimensional context.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Golby. Any other member? No. In which case we'll move to the report recommendations. All those in favour, please show. Okay, that is carried. That moves us on to agenda item number 9, which is the capital programme outturn for 21-22. Councillor Croft.
Thank you very much, Leader. As this is the first meeting, I think, where I'm moving a finance report since the summer recess, it gives me the opportunity to congratulate our new finance director for the closing and the finalisation of the 2021 accounts just before the summer. And she managed to get it done a whole month before we projected we'd finally get it across the line. That was a remarkable achievement. So I just want to put my thanks and the thanks to the entire Cabinet on record for that. This report is part of our moving into the next phase, which is doing the 21-22 accounts. I'm afraid there's no let-up. And as we are doing that, as has already been implied in some of the questioning, we are making process and reporting improvements as we go. And this is part of that. We're going to be seeing more reports, which should hopefully be clearer and easier to understand, which disaggregate the information and make it more digestible. This is the capital programme outturn for 21-22. This is a backward-looking document. It's not future plans. The one thing I would really call attention to, the headline, is the variances. Now, every department, every portfolio came in under budget last year because of programme slippage, except it would appear, Leader, your department, which shows a £2.4 million variance. However, I would like to emphasise that before any false impressions are given, that is to do with accounting. That is reprofiling the spend between financial years. That's not actually any additional cost. And that will be eliminated as we make those process improvements moving to 3-year capital programming. So I shall move the report, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Croft, and I will second that from the Chair. I have Mrs Condacourt who wishes to speak on that item.
Thank you. I just really want to flag up a few bits that struck me that had been sort of seemingly quite underspent and is of concern. The empty property loans, the play and teenage provision, nomad cameras and fly tipping cameras, because those are all things which would really make or potentially could make a huge difference to a lot of people. And it's very disappointing that, they haven't been done in the past year. On your election leaflets from 2021 and 2022, you were flagging out, we're going to install extra CCTV cameras to prosecute fly tippers, etc., etc. And it's very disappointing that hasn't, happened. The nomad cameras money seems to be reprofiled and moved forward, but the fly tipping cameras, I don't know whether they are just an awful lot cheaper than you envisaged, or or whether you're just giving up on the idea, or whether they're going to be covered by the Nomad cameras and things. But it seems a bit of a shame that 54,000 that was budgeted, suddenly, you know, 9,750 pounds been spent, and yet only 5,000 seems to be going into reprofiling. So those are the things that, you know, I pick out and are of concern to me as a resident. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Condacourt. Any non-cabinet member? Councillor Condacourt.
Yeah, I picked out similar things to Michelle, but also it's interesting to see what's happening on the big capital projects like Abbey Street, etc. And one of the problems with the reprofiling, if you looked like on the Appendix 2, which is page 12, we've got £21 million for the hotel and the bits around the hotel, 16.8 million for the bits around the cinema, the Abbey Street Phase 2. But there's no commentary to know whether by pushing them back a year, or most of them, are things just running a year later, or will they also run more expensively? Because we're lacking the sort of transparency. This is why it's a great pity this hasn't gone to the Finance Committee that meets tomorrow, so that actually they could start asking officers questions, because obviously at a cabinet meeting we're not supposed to ask you questions. That's supposed to be for scrutiny. But there's a lot of stuff in here which has slipped a year, and we all know all the problems in the world, and if you add the Abbey Street projects together, you're almost £40 million. So that should really have a detailed report telling us how it's going and what the outturn is, and maybe a percentage complete or something, because at the moment it's a bit of a black hole, mystery, whatever, what is going on in terms of the timescales, particularly what's going on with Phase 2. We're just starting to get the planning applications come through, and we've got no visibility, and there's lots of things that really worry me about those projects, particularly like where the bus stops are and those sort of details. And I don't know where Abbey Street Phase 2 has got to know how on earth we make noises to make sure that the infrastructure is right for these big expensive projects. Because that's more, if they've not included the bus services and all those bits, that's more expenditure. And then we've got the bid gone in for the new theatre, and yeah, it'd be good to get an idea of what the capital impact of that is. And finally, we haven't had a Treasury Management Strategy reported for ages, so we don't know how we're under borrowed to pay for all this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condacourt. Any Cabinet member wish to come back in? Councillor Croft and Councillor Markham.
Thank you, Lee. Just a couple of points. To answer some of the questions, just remember that this is a backward-looking document to the end of the last financial year, and I thought I was right. I just confirmed with the director. The fly-tipping cameras are on order. They've been delayed by manufacturers' parts issues, and the Nomad cameras are already here. So nobody likes slippage in the capital programmes, but as we've already discussed this evening, and as the member of the public has already called attention to, we do have some staffing issues, so that will be an inevitable consequence of that. But the money is there, the programmes are going ahead, and as the Finance Director has already alluded to this evening, we are bringing forward the reports to future Cabinet, so they are in train.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Croft. Councillor Markham, then Councillor Golby.
Thank you, Chair. I was only actually going to just say that about the Nomad cameras and the fly-tipping cameras, as to why it looks like that they're not here where they are actually here. We just haven't paid the money out because we haven't got them yet.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. Councillor Golby.
It's in reference to the mention of the loans for empty properties. As with any loan, we can't force people to take them. So if we don't get people applying for them, we can't give them. But I will take this opportunity to say to anybody that's got an empty property, we can assist you in getting that property back into use. We can potentially give you a loan dependent on what it is that you need to do. We can look at other ways of possibly alleviating you of the burden of that home also. So get in touch. I'll take the opportunity now to put out a bit of a sales pitch for anyone that's got an empty house. Get in touch with our Empty Homes team and we can see what we can do with it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Golby. In reference to some of the issues which were raised in terms of my own portfolio, whilst this is a backward-looking report, the questions were asked, and at the last Cabinet meeting, I believe it was, there was an item, albeit on confidential, which outlined the draft timetable for the completion of the Transforming Nuneaton works, which Councillor Condacor did have a copy of, and I believe he was here at that meeting, if memory serves correctly. We know that work has started on Abbey Street. It was delayed longer than we would have liked because there had to be ground testing issues, etc., and discharge of planning conditions that relate to that. But having been on site there last Thursday, I can confirm that work has started. It is below the hoarding line, so I accept that people would not necessarily be able to see it at this stage, apart from the great big piece of machinery which is stuck up in the sky for the pile drilling. But they are cracking on with that work, and there are somewhere in the region of about 130 pile holes which have to be drilled just for the hotel alone. So that won't necessarily be work which residents can see. It will be behind the hoardings at this stage, and then as they begin to build the actual skeleton, if you like, of the hotel, that work will begin to pop over the hoardings in due course. And they are beginning preparation work for phase 2. As part of the work that they are doing on phase 1, they are contracted to do some of the ground surveying and testing in preparation for phase 2, which is what is happening and looking at in the other end of the car park closest to Queen's Road. So work is being undertaken there. And Councillor Condacor did have access to those reports, as I say. Any other member wish to come in on that? No? In which case we'll move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Okay, thank you. This moves us on to the collection fund outturn for 21-22. Councillor Croft.
Thank you very much, Leader. This is very similar to the previous report. This is a backward-looking document for the last financial year relating to the collection fund, which is our statutory instrument for collecting council tax, because we are the collection authority. While it has our names on the bill, most of it goes to other authorities. The big headline on this one is that because of base growth in our housing stock and the housing base of the borough, we've actually increased the surplus in it this year, which is some small measure of good news. So I shall move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. I will second the report subject to a slight correction in the papers on page 95 at paragraph 4.26. It says that the collection fund precepts are split to the government 50%, Derbyshire County Council 10%, and us, Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council 40%. I accept that was a slip of the keys on that, and it should say Warwickshire County Council. I think that was force of habit, wasn't it, Vicky, based on your old job. But just so that we are open and transparent and no one can say that we're sending money where it shouldn't be, it isn't Derbyshire County Council, it is indeed Warwickshire County Council. So, subject to that slight correction, I will second that, Councillor Croft. Okay, so I have one public speaker on that item. Yes, it is on this item. Okay, thank you, Mrs Condacor. In which case that moves me to non-cabinet members. Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is a backwards-looking report, and it's good that we have been getting growth in the council tax base. I don't think that's going to continue, and I worry about the future of the non-domestic, the business rates going forward, particularly as we're doing the breaking eggs to build new scenario. There's a period when you actually will be closing businesses before new businesses are brought up. I'm pleased the way things are going in the backward-looking report, but I do have fears going forward. And I don't know if up-to-date medium-term financial strategy is going to be done on the back of this to see where we are likely to be going in terms of business rate income. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Condacor. Any cabinet member wish to come back? No? The only point I would make in reference to Councillor Condacor's comments is, based on the number of developments which are happening across the borough, whether you like them or not, and a number of which I don't like because they were passed by the previous administration, there are going to be new properties brought online, so that will inevitably see an increase in the council tax base. I think that is inevitable given the number of developments, and I think that is also borne out by the fact that the Local Government Boundary Commission has just estimated our future population by 2028 on the electoral roll to be in the region of 117,000, just short of, electors, and it's currently in the region of 94,000, thereabouts. So that is a significant increase projected by 2028. So I don't think it is a correct statement to put out there that the council tax base will not increase. I think it's fairly self-evident that that must be happening based on the planning permissions granted, and if the Boundary Commission have accepted them, they obviously believe that that is a reliable source of data too. Any other Cabinet member? I don't see anyone. No, in which case, can we move to the vote in favour of the recommendations? All those in favour? Thank you very much. That is passed. That moves us on to agenda item number 11, which is recommendations from overview and scrutiny. I've not been made aware of any and none have come through. No. Any other items? There are no other items which have been brought to my attention. That brings me to agenda item 13, which is exclusion of the public and press. It is recommended under the relevant sections of the Local Government Act 1972 that we move into confidential session. I will move that from the chair. Does that receive a seconder? Councillor Croft, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. So can I please ask members of the public to leave, please?
Residents would like to have more CCTV. That's a great
Mr. Smith,
idea.
this isn't an opportunity for you to
We
speak.
would- we would-
Mr. Smith.
Well, just listening to what I've heard about CCTV, but where we want the CCTV is in here, in the committee rooms, yeah, watching you lot. We could cut out a lot more crime doing that. Than
Mr. Smith.
No matter how many you put on
Mr.
the street.
Smith, your opportunity to speak, you missed.
That's it.
We have now resolved into private
you
session.
can do what you did yesterday. You can just cut it and not put it out on
I'm
for
asking
the
you
public
to leave.
see.
If you don't
Yeah,
leave,
fine.
we will have you removed.
No problem, Chris. No problem. All right?
Thank you. Goodbye, Mr. Smith. Can we just confirm it's ended? And can we just make sure that